Welcome to the Down There Where podcast. I'm Aimee DeBeau. This is the show where we get loud about women's below-the-belt health from menstruation to menopause and everything in between. So many women continue to silently endure issues like endometriosis, PCOS, menstrual disorders, and menopause-related challenges without the proper support. We're done with the whispers. We're here to break the taboos, share the stories, and have the conversations no matter how uncomfortable. Whether you're dealing with your own health journey, supporting someone who is, or just ready to join the movement, you're in the right place. Let's get loud. 25 years in corporate, leading teams, driving change, building a career she loved. Then menopause showed up, mid-career, mid-stride. When she went looking for support at work, for resources, for one honest conversation, she found nothing. Silence. So she got loud. My guest today is Aimee DeBeau, founder of Menavate, and she's on a mission to blow the doors off one of the most under-discussed realities in the workplace, menopause. Not the awkward lunch and learn, not the pamphlet in the boardroom, the honest, practical, no-shame version. And it keeps happening. HR sets out 50 chairs, hoping maybe 50 people will show up, then watches the room fill up while a few hundred more join online. Afterward, employees say the same thing every time. We've never heard this at work before. Thank you. It's about time. Because this silence has a cost. It costs companies their best people. It costs women their well-being. And Aimee decided that that was a bill she wasn't willing to keep paying. Today, we're talking about what happens when a workplace finally brings the conversation into the open and why supporting women through menopause is good for people and really good for business. This is the Down There Where podcast. I'm Aimee DeBeau. Let's get loud. Okay, I am so excited to welcome Aimee to the show. Aimee, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me here today.
I am beyond excited to have this conversation with you today. I kind of found you online. I was, looking for female voices that are standing out on LinkedIn because I think women's issues in the workplace are completely, we're all underserved on all areas. And anyways, I came across the amazing work that you're doing and I reached out to you and I'm so grateful you're here to join us today. So please tell our amazing listeners who you are.
So I'm Aimee DeBeau and I'm the founder of Menavate. And it is a company that does menopause education, but very specifically corporately. So I do menopause talks, I work with HR and policy, and I have a series of 6 e-learning courses that I sell into and work with companies to put into their e-learning platforms. And I'm super passionate about what I'm doing.
Yes, I have heard you speak in front of a large amount of people, and you are very passionate. So I'm excited to bring that fire to the podcast today. So all of these things tend to start, all of the things we're doing in the women's health place seem to start with personal experiences. This is what started for me for this podcast and for the event that we're producing to raise funds for women's below the belt health issues. And I know, so I can't wait for you to share that your journey to what got you to what you're doing started with a personal one. So please tell me.
Sure. So I worked corporate, mostly telecom, for over 25 years. And I love what I did. I did all different roles and continued to climb up the ladder. And for the last 10 years, I suffered tremendously with perimenopause and menopause. And so that journey had various stages. And I would say the first 5 years of it, I really thought I was severely ill. I did go to the multitudes of doctors, was dismissed like many women are, and nobody pieced it together. So I saw a neurologist because I really thought I had dementia, severe dementia.
Wow.
I couldn't remember anything. I had 2 severe frozen shoulders that needed surgery. So I went to ortho and nothing was pieced together. And every time I would say, is this hormonal related? They would look at me like I was crazy. So that was the first 5 years of the journey. And then I started doing my own research because I knew that this couldn't be just, all of these things happening.
Right.
There have to be some correlation. And as I started doing more and more research and reading papers, especially in the UK, because they are significantly ahead of us
Mm-hmm.
in on this topic,
Mm-hmm.
I realized, wow, I'm in perimenopause. Like, this is classic perimenopause. So
Right.
I had anxiety that I had never in my entire life had. Frozen shoulders, as I said, skin and nail issues, heart palpitations, day sweats, night sweats. So I had a lot of them, and they were I was one of the 25% of women that had very severe symptoms. So
Right.
almost all of my body, joint hurt,
Mm.
had some impact. And that's quite normal as I've gone through this
Right.
journey, because estrogen receptors are in over 400 parts of your body. So different parts of you respond differently, and different women's receptors respond differently. So their lack of the estrogen in those areas respond differently. And so mine had this really intense response to it. So now I knew what it was, and I started to look around, and I was in a unique position. I was the chief of staff for the president of one of the largest telecom companies in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And I would see women coming in and out of the office with the same things as I was suffering. So these dark circles under their eyes from not sleeping, and putting their hair up in a ponytail and sweater off and on when they're sweating. And as I would approach them, they would not have the conversation with me. There was
Mm-hmm.
just so much stigma and so much don't put that label on me,
Right.
because I don't want anything that goes with it. And I had an epiphany moment. So I was presenting a very large project to the senior team, and I lived and breathed this project, and I knew everything about it. I had a team. I was working on it day and night and months, and I, prepped the slides, and I was ready. Then I went in to present, and I hadn't slept much like I hadn't on most nights. But the worst part was, here I go, this great opportunity to present, and I can remember like nothing. So that was a moment I knew something had to change at work. That,
Mm-hmm.
women needed to be supported. We needed to have the conversation. Most of the people in the room that day were males.
Right.
And so, I didn't feel the ability to say a word about why I was struggling through this presentation. And I did really struggle through it. And that really was my turning point. So I put my hand up very shortly after and said, I think it's time for me to go. And I had a really
Mm.
great, relationship, and I left. And I took a full year to get healthy. So I
Wow.
changed everything in my life, from how I eat, how I sleep, how I socialize. And I'd love to get into it more with you, but I really
Yeah.
changed everything. And at the end of the year, I felt amazing. I just felt like another human being. And I thought, women need to feel this way. Like, we
Yeah.
should not be feeling the way I felt for the last 9
Right.
years, and feeling so
Right.
alone and struggling at work, where you spend, we had a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
quick conversation before,
Yeah.
menopause doesn't stay home. It comes with
No.
you to work
Sure
every
does.
single day. So that was, that was my beginnings of the journey. And then once I started looking for corporate roles again, and I went, no, I want to do something different. I want to make a change where women
Wow.
at work feel safe and ready and empowered to have this
Mm.
conversation at work. So I
Well,
created my
because
company. Yeah.
yeah, which I mean, just so much of what you said, and we thought it was okay to not feel okay, like forever. Like it feels like until a year ago, before these conversations really got right. Like we're seeing them pop up more and more and more in the workplace. Was and still is, like, there's still taboos around it in terms of, like, I lived through it with painful periods and endometriosis before my hysterectomy. And how many times can you call in sick because you got cramps when nobody like really believes you anyways? And so you just work through it. And then let alone stand up and say, I've got frozen shoulder, perimenopause, even if you can remember your symptoms, because we can't remember anything. And it's just, we deserve to feel better. We deserve to have the roles that we're in, and we deserve people to understand what's happening to us. And that's what I love about the journey that you're on is that you're through it. This is all about how to help others, moving forward. So before we jump into what happens when you work with the company, tell me, because I know people are like, okay, but what did she do in that year that made her feel so good? So tell us about that journey for you.
So, I really believe that perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause. And so I'm still postmenopausal and there's still things I'm going through and will continue to go through. But the things that I really focused, as I said, was exercise, sleep, nutrition, and mental health. And so I definitely work with my medical professionals to make sure I'm on the right medication for me. And that right away is already a challenge, because finding a doctor in Canada, that's not, if you can afford it, is private. There a lot in Canada right now. And if you can't and you do find a GP, it's really hard to find one who's willing to have a proper conversation and so I did a lot of work on that side to find the right match and the right person. And even once you do, there's a lot of, balancing to get to the right levels of what you're taking and what you need. But on the other side, so in my talks, I do talk about, so sleep is so important. It is so underrated for women and men, but more for women, because we're up all night taking, yes, during your menstruation, we're taking a lot of the up at night with, even if we are on mat leave or not on mat leave, but with all, like, multiple times in years with babies. And then in menopause, sleep is really impacted for a good majority. And I'll tell you, I more than 6 years didn't sleep over 3 hours. I didn't sleep more than 3 hours a night. And I thought that was totally normal.
That's
like
crazy.
That was, and my doctors told me that was normal. But when I finally got some of the right support, some doctors would say to me, not sleeping is as bad as smoking. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's torture. It's it's like a form of torture, keeping people awake, for real.
So if you're not sleeping, you can't then exercise. You don't have the energy. No. You can't make good choices on how you eat. You can't be a good employee. You can't be a good spouse or a partner. And you can't be a good parent. So it impacts all your life. So for me, sleep is so important. So it was whether someone chooses to go get medication for it, which again, there's so much stigma around it, but there's a ton of new medications to help everyone, to help people sleep. And actually sleeping is so much better than not taking a medication. And then, literally creating like sleep as a job, like putting a whole structure around making sure that sleep is important. So sleep, nutrition. So you hear a lot now, you talked about a lot about this on social media, but it's really about not just eating protein, right? It's about finding the right balance between protein and fiber and carbs and fat. As women, we've been told for many years to starve ourselves and be skinny and, cardio only. And it's so important for menopause, during menopause, and not only menopause, just as you age, to be strong and not skinny. And I'm so happy with this trend of, seeing many more women in the gym. And so, so I weight train 4 times a week. I eat a really good hearty amount of protein and fiber and whole foods and vegetables. And so all of these pieces work together. They're not one. Like, it's great if you're sleeping, but if you're not doing any exercise and moving, right. But the more you sleep better, the more energy you have for exercise, and the more you exercise, the better you feel. So your mental health, so they're all intertwined. And so I know it's unusual to have this ability to take a year, but it was this luxury I had and I gave myself because I truly fundamentally believe that women going through perimenopause can feel amazing. And I do. Like, I feel, I wake up every day energized. And that's really a great message I want to come through is, yes, menopause is inevitable because every single woman is going to go through it. Every single one. but it doesn't have to be horrific. Like it can be
Right.
so positive and so energetic and, a time of rebirth almost, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're no longer going to get pregnant, good or bad, but
Yep.
you're not like,
Yep.
there's so many great things about this time of your life. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I try and work with companies to understand how important it is with just a little bit of support, how much financial, cultural,
Oh, huge.
work productivity benefit they get from it. So there's a massive
Huge.
upside for companies to talk about it at work.
Well, and I'm so grateful you did that for yourself because if that is what you get to impart on others. So like you said, taking a year off isn't a luxury everyone has, but you've now you've cracked the code on something so you can share that information, right? Like it's one of those things when we talk about quantum leaps and things like that. If you've done the research for us, so now it's like, here you go, here's a prescription. And like you said, we're all different and various pieces will be different for us in terms of the hormones and what we're taking. However, like the fundamentals of like sleep and eating well and working out, those are positives regardless. That's one thing that we're always talking about in our group of friends is like all the information out there right now is actually most of it is healthy. Like I have friends who've never lifted a weight before. I also weight train 4 days a week. My sleep hygiene, my friends joke because I go to bed at 9:34. I used to be the gal, who would be the last at the party and the first up in the morning. So that 3 to 5 hours sleep was normal. Where I'm like, no, I need to be in bed by 9:34. Like my kids, if they see me on the couch at 10, they're like, what's wrong with mom? Um, because I've realized you can feel good and it's
100%.
so nice. And I mean, for me, I lived most of my life unwell, suffering from endometriosis. And then, I'm living on this side of surgical menopause. And so there's little information out there about perimenopause and menopause. There's almost nothing about surgical menopause. And even in the workplace for that, it's a significant amount of time off. And then you need to still get better and so I do agree with you. This whole strong over skinny is so beautiful, and it's not about losing weight, it's body recomposition and just changing that language and is going to change people's lives. Like it really is.
Well, it's about living longer. So longevity
Mhm.
and living
Mhm.
lifespan, right? Well,
Mhm.
what health span instead of, right? So
Yeah.
you know, my mother unfortunately didn't have the knowledge that I have.
Mhm.
And she is living, and I'm living with her through this of 5
Mhm.
spinal fractures, right? So she
Right.
has spinal fractures from no fall, from nothing, just from not
Wow.
having bone health and not good bone health. And it's purely a menopause related non she didn't do any weight training. She was on hormone therapy for a very short time and then taken off of
Mhm.
it like a lot of women of her generation.
Uh-huh.
And then she didn't have the protection or the coverage. So, I mean, I talk a lot about, owning your own health journey as well. I know
Mhm.
you talk a lot about your health
Mhm.
journey. And so we have to self advocate. Like, we have to make
Mhm.
sure that if something's not feeling right, you go checking in, making sure, have we had our bone density checked? Unfortunately, in Canada, the average woman gets a bone density at 65. So way, way
Way too
too
late.
late. By 65, you already had some sort of hip,
Right.
spinal, wrist fracture.
Right.
You may not even know about it. So getting a
Right.
baseline of your bone density, most places in the world is 40.
Ooh.
And that's what we should be
Ooh,
doing
wow.
and advocating for ourselves. So I agree. There's a lot of knowledge. There's a lot of, thank goodness, there's a lot more talk. But I
Mhm.
will say the experiences I have at work, it's still so silent. For the most
Oh.
part, most companies that bring me in, this is the first time their employees are hearing the word menopause being spoken at work. And that happens over and over again when I come because it's really quiet at the beginning. And then
Yeah.
it's like a flood. They really, really want to talk about it and they want their employers to hear, and they want a space to be comfortable to have this conversation. They want to know what benefits they have. And what accommodations can they be given? And it's just so pent up and so needed that once the doors opened, it's pretty
Mm-hmm.
crazy. There's almost always somebody who leaves in tears and says, like, I
Yeah.
have been suffering and I didn't put this all together. Thank you so much. Like, now I know. So it's really rewarding. And the
Mm-hmm.
feedback that I get from companies and employees is just remarkable. Like, it's literally life changing for some people.
Yeah. Well, and I think when it comes to the workplace, I mean, it's like all these systems have to catch up to like our benefit plans for those who have them. I understand not everybody does. And for those companies who have benefit plans for their employees, most of those benefit plans don't, if it's called a benefit and it's not working in our benefit, it's not really a benefit plan. And so, I mean, I want to dig into more what happens in the workplace with you and the things that we can do to change it. But like, if the bare minimum of benefit isn't even matching what women need, that needs to change. Like, this is policy life changing from like ground up. And it's we as women, it's been taboo. We don't want to tell people we're pregnant before like basically the day we go give birth, because maybe we won't be able to like keep our jobs or get that promotion, or like one of my past guests, Yolanda, who is dealing with infertility issues, and she's at work getting these horrific phone calls and about it working or not working, and like, who does she go to? Like, we're just not supported. And so if we've never been supported, why would we think we're supported now? And I think, I will share as a plug for you, Aimee, when we met, my girlfriend Sarah, who works at Spin Master, she had like 2 weeks before told me about this like amazing menopause talk that they'd had at work, and it was so great, and the room was full. And then we put it together when you and I met at that talk, and you were like, they ran out of space. So like, people need to hear this. Like, Aimee needs to be at your workplaces, because it's not one or two people that show up. It is hundreds. Like you told me, there's people outside of the room. They had to telecast it. There was people online, because if you are introducing that and what a great thing that this company was bold enough to have you there. So tell me in our audience, like, what happened? Like, how do you even arrive at a workplace? And then what happens when you're there?
Yeah. So Spin Master was amazing. I really appreciate, and I got such positive feedback from,
Mm-hmm.
their employees. But yeah, that day that I arrived, we were setting up, and there was about 20 seats. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the leaders that was helping to organize said, "Oh, should we take a few seats away?" And I was like, "What? Why?" And they're like, "Well, people are working from home. I'm not sure if we're going to get enough." And yeah, hundreds, as you said, showed
Yeah.
up. So both in the room and online. And I think they were surprised to see
Mm-hmm.
that. And that is kind of my slogan, right? Like, they
Mm-hmm.
expected 20 and 500 showed up because so going back to your question,
Yeah.
I will meet with usually the head of HR or one of the uh, either an ERG or a women's group. It depends how I come into the company, but we agree on the time. So usually an hour and a half session.
Mm-hmm.
I've done cocktail parties, I've done lunches, we've done it in a restaurant, I've done a breakfast. It really doesn't matter the format. I can do it online. Or I can do it in person. Sometimes we do it. A lot of the time, we do it hybrid, and I give a talk about what is this topic of perimenopause and menopause, and what's happening in your body. I mean, it is shocking how the most impactful thing on our lives, so this hormonal change, that females are not educated, never mind male or everyone else in our life
Right.
that needs to as well. But
Mm-hmm.
really, when I go in, and I just did a talk actually at an amazing company who took a while to convince, because they said, we're mostly a male dominated company, and we're a startup, and we only have 20 and 30-year-olds. And I'm like, great. So,
Perfect.
this is when you also need to learn what's going on. And they were the most engaged audience I have had,
Mm.
because they don't know what's going on during their period. They don't know what's going
No.
on during pregnancy. They don't know what's happening in perimenopause. And it's a continuum of hormonal changes. I mean, you really are
Mm-hmm.
only not hormonal for your first 10, 11 years before you get your period, right? The
Right.
rest of our lives, we are in some sort of fluctuation of hormones.
Mhm.
And they just wanted to take all this information in and learn.
Beautiful.
And so we do need to understand. We need to know what's going
Mhm.
on so that we can share with our partners and our employers. And so that it just becomes this normal. I mean, I think of it as so lucky as females. We get to have this fluctuation in these hormones for our whole life. Why?
Mhm.
So we can bring other humans into this world, right?
Right.
And that is just what happens for a female because of how
Right.
we're built and what we do, right? It as
Mhm.
our side of everything else incredible that females do, but
Right.
work wasn't really built for that. It was built
Right.
for someone who doesn't have hormonal
Right.
changes at any
Right.
stage in their life. So going back, so I come in and I'll do a talk. I'll obviously ask questions, and then I bring a questionnaire for the people that are in the audience. So not only do I start educating, which is the core to bringing menopause into the work, is to start educating. So educating HR leaders, educating employees, educating the executive team, and anyone involved in policy as well. So,
Mhm.
really starting to educate is the core number one. And so that's why I started this business, right? To start
Mhm.
educating. And so that I will do this talk and then I leave this. I said there's a questionnaire, and so that I give feedback back to the company so they get a whole bunch to learn as well out of this talk. And that's number one. Usually it sometimes happens in different order. And then that's usually number one. And number two, I will come back to do a second, which goes
Mm.
deeper into, how do you talk to your manager? As a manager, how do you talk to your employees? How do we go deeper in this conversation? Like, there are so many other ways. How do you get senior female leaders to stand up and start talking about, I'm going through,
Mhm.
like, just normalizing it, right? When you have a leader who is willing to say, I'm going through it, it's normal, I'm going to talk about it at work, it opens up the rest of the employees to feel safe to have that
Mm.
conversation and go, yeah, it's like, it's a normal, natural transition that each one of us is going to go through. Some of us worse than others, and some of us
Mhm.
are going to need some accommodation, and that's okay. But so that's one. And the two
Mhm.
is, I told you I have these e-learning platforms. So
Mhm.
that allows, there's one for males, there's one for HR. So
Mm.
as I said, there's different versions of it, and there's different people who need different forms of the education. But
Mhm.
those people employees can watch at their desk. So they just take an hour, they watch it at their desk. It can be a private if they don't want to come to a talk. So,
Right.
it's a different way of learning from different people. So I offer both of those options. And as I said, sometimes it's the e-learning first, then it's a talk, or
Mhm.
first a talk and e-learning. But it starts with this education. That's really where it starts and opens the reduction of stigma. And
Right.
there's one more side to it. And, this is great for culture and employees and females to feel better. But I get unbelievable engagement from males as well. They want to
Mhm.
know, they want to learn, they want to, often they'll go, okay, now I understand my wife. Like,
Right.
so they don't know what, if many of us don't know what's happening, then they
Yeah.
really don't know, but they want to. And so
Yeah.
engaging the males and allies is just at work and everywhere, but specifically at work because a lot of corporations are top heavy of males.
100%.
Um, it just builds empathy, right, of what someone's
Yeah.
going through and how to have a proper conversation. So I work through some of that as well.
I love that because I think, like, I was writing down notes and as you were saying things, and it's that, speak a little bit about it. Maybe it's still so new that you don't, but to me, there's this, like, I wrote down the word accountability because I think of, when we listen to some of the doctors speak right now and they're like, we learned about menopause for 20 minutes. And then, we learned about everything else. And these people who learned about menopause for 20 minutes are the ones who are telling us they know our bodies better. So you now have been invited into these workplaces and there's like this pat on the back, like, look, we did it. But what's the accountability? Like, what are you seeing post you showing up? Like, it's great for us to have the conversation and people come into the room, but then what kind of accountability and is ongoing and that keeps happening that you've seen? Like maybe it's both sides. Maybe you see nothing and it's a great conversation. Everybody leaves going like, oh my God, that was great. And or other people are like, yay. And how can we do more? Like, what are you seeing?
So for the most part, I think it is a relatively new topic for companies, for sure. There are handfuls of companies, both in Canada and the States. As I mentioned, Europe is quite a bit ahead, but there's still lots to be done there. There are some that have, handfuls of companies that have been talking this for 1 or 2 years already. And so,
Right.
they've done multiple talks. They've
Great.
done, so some of the things I do is I'll do a review of the benefits. And so that's like a next step, right? And so many companies have these benefits that apply to perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, like psychology and pelvic health and physio, but they're never tied that these are menopause
Right.
benefits. And so when you ask, part of my questionnaire, like when I ask the employees, do you have menopause benefits? The answer is always no, even though they probably have, even a wellness bucket
Right.
as well, right? So making sure they understand both the corporate take responsibility to say these are our menopause benefits or benefits that apply to menopause, and make employees aware. As I said, having a senior female champion or even a male champion, but as long as
Yep.
there's, an HR lead on menopause is really important. So is this happening at many companies? No. But
Not yet.
there's a lot of things that can be done. Are there a chat group? Is there,
Right.
a meeting that male and females both can come and have, a weekly conversation about? So there's many things that can be done. Are they doing all of these? No. I think these are the baby steps. So the beginning is,
Right.
yes, they start with education, which is great. But I do talk about this is not a once in a, one time thing. This is being a multi-generational ignoring at work.
Yeah.
So it's going to take time and lots of repetition to get this started. Like there's still many times after I leave a company, if I came back, like they're like, well, I still don't, I'll talk to my girlfriends, but I'm still not comfortable talking about this at work. Right. So
Right.
we have a long way to go. And I do think it does start with the education part. So whether
100%. I mean, you have to give it language. Like I even think like when I was teaching way back when I was a child and youth worker and I used to, because I don't have a filter and it was all right. And I was teaching body health to like in grade 5, you learn about getting your period, wet dreams. You learn about, your body parts, what they're actually called and all that kind of stuff. And I loved it because I happen to work in an inner city community. And so I had a lot of kids whose parents were younger than me. And I was like, so we're going to I need to educate you on what's happening to your body. And, because I was never taught, I literally took tampons and put them in water. We played and touched pads. Like we did all those things so that we could normalize that. And so that people had a name and a thing and they knew what it was and they weren't ashamed by it. Like, again, it was just little old me doing the best I could in that group, but at least we talked about it in a non-judgmental way. And that's still tough for people to do in the school system to teach puberty, let alone what we're trying to do and undo it. And then with all of, the layers of his history and how we're supposed to be and who women are and how we're supposed to show up. And it has to start with education. It has to start with the conversation. And I'm not surprised by your response in terms of like, we have a long way to go. This is just the beginning.
Yeah. So
Just the beginning.
2 things I don't think I covered that I mentioned to you. So like, the benefits for a company though is also enormous, right? So as I said, like the culture fight, but the stats are really staggering. So 10% of women are quitting their job because of menopause, right? So they're not.
You're a perfect example. You left. You took a year off.
So
you're a high performer.
I talk to executive women all the time, like heads of banks and very high level, high performing, and they quit because they thought they were burned out or they no longer have the confidence or they're not willing. So the 10% are quitting. Another huge chunk are taking a step back. So they're not putting their hand up so that is a huge loss to the company, right? Woman at the right age, with the right history of the company and leadership rules, plus they're doing all sorts of extracurricular stuff in the company, they just walk out the door. And it's really expensive to replace that and replace, even just look at the core cost of hiring, someone to read.
Totally.
But all the institutional educational loss, sick leave is costly as well. Productivity loss is costly as well. So there's a lot, billions of dollars of loss if you don't deal with this. And it's only going to be a matter of time before this is mandated. So in the UK and Australia, they both are the two first countries that have mandated that workplaces start having proper menopause policies in place. So UK is in 2027. Any company over 250 employees must have a tangible menopause policy.
Wow.
And just a few weeks ago, I was called to the House of Commons. And so it's great to see that Canada has just formed a committee, and they're looking at, what laws and policies need to be in place for companies, and not only companies, but, our education, our health system and everything. But the fact that it's hit their radar shows that this is really an important topic, and that companies might as well start doing this now, because it's, there are legal implications, there are financial implications, and there are cultural implications. So I think the ones that talk about this at work and have it out in the open have not only cultural, but financial benefits from it.
Oh, huge. Like we know we keep women healthy and the world is a healthier place. And we're 51% of the population. We're not just a couple of cuties sitting in a corner. We are significantly important to this world. And I think the other piece, and I don't know how much you focus there, but the other piece is that surgical menopause piece, is that there are women in their 20s having hysterectomies, in their 30s, in their 40s, well before perimenopause even hits. And there is little to no information for that. A 24-year-old who's just had a hysterectomy, who's now in surgical menopause, does not have a group of friends that look like you and I that is talking about it. And the layers of what a young woman might be going through in terms of the loss of being able to have children, all of a sudden in surgical menopause, there's a whole cohort of group that this isn't just 35-year-old women plus or 45 when perimenopause. It is literally our it can happen at any age that a woman has to have a hysterectomy that puts them into surgical menopause.
100%. So I do talk about it. I think for the average human, they think menopause is an old lady thing.
Totally.
That is a hot flush, right? That's the standard knowledge. So even step one is the fact that this starts many, many years before, in your late 30s or early 40s, already is that's the height of your career. You're not
huge.
old. This is late 30s. Some of people are just at the beginnings even of their career.
Yeah, totally.
And then lots, as you just said, and also the trans community, right, are also affected by it. And surgical or there are other health things that put you in menopause as well, right? And most surgeons do not warn you. They're doing the surgery, they're doing the hysterectomy, and I often get people calling me, oh my God, I'm gonna have a hysterectomy. And I'm like, have you talked to your doctor about what the post-hormone response is gonna be? And they're like, no, my surgeon won't talk to me about that. Their answer is, we'll deal with that after. But you can't deal with it after. It's so profound. Once you've had your ovaries removed, you're immediately in this intense menopause that you're not, sometimes that can be worse than the hysterectomy is. This is now a life impacting, as I said, over 100 symptoms, 400 parts of your body that are now, and you can't wait. You have to, they need to have that conversation early on in the conversation of you need to have your uterus taken, you need to have your ovaries taken out. Let's talk about what's going to happen in menopause, because it's quite shocking.
It's instant. Yeah. And you bring up a point too. And I mean, I was put in drug-induced menopause in my 20s. I was put on a drug called Lupron, which I know is still actively used today. And I was in my 20s dealing with menopausal symptoms, and I had them really rough. And this was when the study had come out. My mom was going through menopause, and the HRT was like literally banned. What are you talking? So like, I'm walking around with hot flashes. I can't see. I'm like, I've got heart palpitations a little bit, and I'm like 23 years old. And I like kind of knew about menopause, but not really, because no one talked to me about it. My mom wasn't talking about it. And like, you couldn't find an article or a person. And so, I think it's important that while this is absolutely 100% happening to the 100% of the population that is 35 years and older, it is also happening to a significant population under that as well. And so going into the workplace and the work that you're doing, invites all ages and all stages of people in their careers to start the conversation. And that's huge.
Yeah. And I mean,
Huge.
I think also, like, there's so many layers of this. Like, there's when I just talked to this group, and there was several women, not the young group, but a different group, but they were like, we went because females are having babies later. They literally go straight from pregnancy into perimenopause.
Right.
And the question is, am I postpartum or premenopause? And so, that overlap is becoming even closer, right? So the age is overlapping a lot. So yeah, there's so many intricacies and complexities of it, but the more we have this discussion and the more companies are willing to be supportive and add in accommodations and have the conversation, the better all of our lives are.
Well, that's just it. What would be, someone who's listening is like, oh my gosh, how do I talk about this at work? Like, what are some of your tips for even going to your leader, like starting the conversation? Like, I'm Aimee and I'm at work and I don't know what to do, but I'm in it. What are some of the things that you've learned along the way that are helpful?
So I would say, like, take a look at your benefits, see what's covered and what you can piece together as would help you. Obviously, so the first start is if you're starting to feel this or any changes in your body, mental, physical, emotional, right? Start tracking your symptoms. So on my website, I have a tracker. It's very standard, piece of paper, but you can do it with AI. You can do it whatever way you want. But it's really important to track your symptoms.
I love that.
The intensity of them and the frequency of them. And then the real important piece is which ones are impacting your life, because there are different things you can do for certain symptoms, and you want to address the ones that are impacting your life. And that's when you have to go have a conversation with your doctor. So you can start that like through your menstrual cycle. That can be at any age. It's so important to really, what are you feeling? What's hurting? To have this conversation with your doctor. Once you've done that and you've gone to your doctor and it should you be on HRT? Should you not? I would look at the lifestyle changes. One is because that helps starting. The more you build bone density and muscle mass early, the more you exercise, the more you eat better, obviously all helps you transition better. So those are your outside. The inside is, I tell people to treat the conversation with their boss like a meeting. So book it in their calendar so it has significance. Make sure you have enough time. So don't book a 15-minute, take an hour if that's what you need. Go in prepared like you would a business meeting, factual. So don't make this emotional, make it factual. You don't have to give your whole health history, but you have to say, here are the symptoms I am experiencing. Here are the accommodations I would like to receive. These are the things that would help me. I'd like you to understand what I'm going through, and ask them, are these accommodations acceptable? And if they're not, could they take it away to HR? And if you can't feel comfortable having that with your boss, see if there's an HR leader you feel comfortable having. And if neither of those feel comfortable, because in many companies they don't, is there a female person you can trust and that you would, that have more senior than you or equal, that you feel comfortable at least starting to have a conversation to practice with, to get comfortable?
Right.
Do that first and then move to your boss.
I love that. And then if I'm the boss, what am I doing for the first time when I'm sitting there and I'm like, whoa. And especially if I'm the male boss and I'm like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what the right thing is. Like, what is some of the guidance you offer there?
Yeah. So I have a whole hour course on that.
Oh, I'm sure.
So first is be educated, right? Like
Right.
half your employee base is going to go through this. So it is
Right.
part of your job. You don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to be a clinician and you don't need to know everything, but you need to understand the core of what it is and what's going to happen because you owe that to your team, right? So, and it's super helpful for your personal life as well. So one, get
Yeah.
two is it's okay to say like, I don't know, right? Like,
Yeah.
I haven't had the training. Let me take this away. But, like any other business meeting, like empathy, listening skills, and keeping it neutral. Like, again, like don't make a joke that's
Right.
really
Yeah,
not
that's
good.
huge.
Take it seriously, listen, empathetic, and then like anything else, similar to if you were going to have a conversation, if someone came and said, I am now pregnant or my wife is pregnant, I would like to put in for a formal leave, right? You would go back and find out what the rules are around that and come back. And so same thing, you take this to your HR lead and you say, what do we have? Most of the time you're going to find you have nothing. There is nothing. Which right now, most companies do not have a policy in place. And so it's great because that will start a conversation to help the company. And then obviously I would say, call me, right? So call
100%.
Call somebody to bring in that education, employees, employers as well, right?
Yep.
Managers, leaders. It's really important that they know how to have this conversation because they can get themselves into trouble if they don't have the right conversation.
Yeah, very much so. And I think that bringing yourself in and is that a company like yours does keep it neutral. It helps neutralize the conversation. It makes everybody in the room, puts everybody in the room on the same level in terms of like people may have a varied degree of knowledge, but you get to be that, like I was teaching puberty, you get to be the person. So there's like no one that has to look like they have all the answers. The questions can be asked. If they're uncomfortable, they can then, ask you sidebar afterwards or email you or, it's just, you can take sort of that initial uncomfortableness out of it, which I think is so valuable, especially in the workplace.
Sorry, let me just ask for one.
Oh, yeah. No, please.
Also, as an employee, like I would demand the education, right? Like as an employee, I would go to your HR and say, what do we have? Why have we done no education on this? Or if we've had one talk, it's not enough. Like what more are we doing? Like who else are we bringing in? What other plans are we putting in place? What policy are we adding? What, you as an employee have a lot of say and a lot, obviously some people don't feel comfortable rocking the boat per se.
Right.
So you get a few females together, right? Or you approach a male ally who you think is support. I mean, I've worked with many HR leads that are unbelievable on this topic that are male. Like it doesn't have, right?
No, for sure.
And so I would say like, make sure you're advocating for yourself to HR that this is something you want to hear more about.
Yeah. And I think you can do that at any age as well, right? If you're a 30-year-old listening to this, like you can still add your 100%. And the guarantee is that you're going to get to that stage in life. So at any stage, start questioning your company and asking them to support the women in your organization, no matter what side of the fence you sit on or what age and stage you are. To your point earlier, like we know it's going to happen. So the earlier, the better.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I have a question for you. Have you seen, so I'm kind of flipping it from the positive side of things. It's like, so if I go to work and I've told people, have you had feedback or have you experienced where now you're just blanketed with that must be because you're in menopause, or now it's this conversation of like, whether it's the employee or the employer or the manager, where it's just like, oh, that's your menopause. Like, are you seeing that at all? Are you hearing any of that where all of a sudden, you out yourself to a certain degree and you're like, oh my gosh. And now am I apologizing all the time? Like, are we now, like, where are we in terms of like, so now we've opened it, but now what do we deal with people, humans dealing with the uncomfortableness of it all?
Yeah, of course, right? Like, of course, there's going to be, is it going to impact my job? Is it going to
Right.
impact my promotion? Is it going to, my, similar to how, as you said, you used to keep your pregnancy hidden. I
Right.
think that happens a lot less because there's equal mat and pat leave, both.
Right.
It's just like, I don't think as much, because I wouldn't say it's gone, that, you don't
Right.
get fired or you don't get a promotion because of it. But if we don't fight through this, we'll never break
Mhm.
it. So
Right.
yes, it's there, but I really encourage people to push through it, right? To say, this is happening. I'm still incredibly productive. I want to come to work. And that's what people
Right.
miss, is that we don't want to feel bad. We don't want to feel
No.
sick. We don't want to not sleep. We want to come and give to a company the best we can give. And at that stage, that's what we can do. So give me a little help. Yeah, I
Right.
might need to come in an hour later because I haven't slept all night.
Right.
And once a week, I might need to work from home, different than, everyone else. I'm going to give you so much more, right? And I'm going
Right.
to stay and I'm going to be a loyal and productive. And I'm not taking sick leave because I've gotten, I'm utilizing my benefits. You gave me an extra day off to go get the hormones I needed.
Yeah.
And that is so small in
Yeah.
comparison to what we
Right.
want to give and are able to give. So I
Right.
really try to just plow through it almost, in that,
Yeah.
yes, it's not easy. Yes, we are trying to break something that's been there for a long time, but I'm unapologetic about it now. Like, this
I
is who
love
we
it.
are. This is what's going to happen. Let's start supporting so you get the best from us.
Right. Because it's actually more common than the common cold. Like, right, 100% of the population doesn't always get the 100% of the 51% doesn't always get a common cold. Like, this is real, and we deserve the care, and we deserve to live really good fucking lives, because
Couldn't agree more.
why should we not? But we've allowed ourselves up until now. What does perfect world scenario look to you, Aimee, in terms of how the workplace in the world treats all of us ladies?
Well, I mean, that could take a long time, but let me
Yes,
focus just in the menopause portion,
please.
because there's
Yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
That's what I meant in the menopause side of the world.
So I would say that your employer has a menopause policy, like a formal
Mhm.
policy, where they incorporate a lot of the things they currently have for other health issues or
Mhm.
transition, not even health, like just transitional
Right.
periods. So a
Mhm.
proper policy in place, proper defined accommodations that they offer,
Mm.
um, a proper defined benefit plan,
Mhm.
lots of education,
Mhm.
resources on their website. Um, Taboo has been broken. As I said, humor has gone away. Um, a support group or lunch and
Mhm.
learn type program
Mhm.
is ongoing.
Yeah.
I often say my two busiest months are March and October. Not often, they are, because it's
Mhm.
International Women's Day and Menopause Month.
Right.
And I'm like, menopause doesn't only come to work 2 months a year. So,
Nope.
it's got to be every month, ongoing. And really, I would say it's what your employee base needs. So ask, right?
Right.
There should be a
Right.
questionnaire part of what you do every year on other topics that includes, what do you need from your employer
Right.
for menopause? And so, and that does really differ, right? So like a
Yeah.
nurse or someone working on a factory floor that's wearing a polyester uniform, right, with a
Mhm.
mask and a head covering, is going to
Mhm.
have a very different need and accommodation than a woman working in an office, right? Like, there are
Totally.
different. So it's really important for your employee base to have a voice in this conversation.
Yeah. And to be thinking about that, right? Like, it's, again, you just didn't paint us all with one brush with that statement. It was like every different workplace has different needs for what we need to be doing when we're in that circumstance. And I think, one of the things that my past guest Simon said was when he said, believe, he said, sit, listen, and believe. And I just think you have to believe all of our symptoms may be similar, but we may have nuance to how we're feeling. And, I think we all need to be open to listening to what those differences may be and treat us as individuals, not just as a group of women going through menopause and that we're all grouped into this like lump sum of people. It's like there are core principles to what we're going through, but we're also individual. And, our socioeconomic, our home, all of our life situations are going to be unique. And so while there's some general practice that needs to be put in place, there also needs to be some nuance to being treated like a human and an individual.
100%.
Yeah. Well, I know that there's going to be everyone on this who's going to be listening to our conversation who's going to be like, oh my gosh, how do I get Aimee in front of my employer? How do I learn more? So how can people get a hold of you, Aimee?
So the best way is to go to my website, so menavate.ca, or feel free to email me personally, so aimee@menavate.ca. And there's forms there. Send me a direct email.
Awesome.
Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, you sure would. And I appreciate that, Aimee. And we'll link everything in the show notes. And I would just like to say that you spell your name, Aimee, the way that I always wanted to spell my name when I was a kid. I got really bored with my 3 letters. And so every once in a while I would like switch it up and write it the way that you spell your name. So Aimee, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking your personal experience and advocating on behalf of the rest of us. It is so important, and the work that you're doing is life-changing work for so many, myself included. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to talking to you again and
yes,
to hearing from your listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for getting loud with us today on the Down There Where podcast. If this conversation resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe so you never, ever miss an episode. And leave us a review. It would help us reach more women who've been told to suffer in silence. And here's the thing, awareness isn't enough. We need action, we need funding, we need change. That's where the Down There Affair comes in. We're a global peer-to-peer fundraising movement putting menstrual health center stage, from menstruation to menopause and everything in between. Diseases affecting men receive twice the funding of those affecting women. Only 11% of research dollars go to women's health. We're here to change that. Visit downtherewhere.org to register for our next walk, start fundraising, or join the movement. We can't do this alone. Oh, and follow us on social at the Down There Affair, because this conversation doesn't stop when the episode ends. Whether you're dealing with your own health journey, supporting someone who is, or ready to demand the care we all deserve, you're in the right place. Getting uncomfortable is where change happens, and we're never going back. I'm Aimee Milne. Stay loud.
Oh, that was binge-worthy.